National Electrical Code Section 408.50 requires that switchboard panels be constructed of moisture-resistant and non-combustible materials. This specifically means that the panel itself must be made of a material that will not ignite or support combustion. National Electrical Code Section 408.17 prohibits the installation of switchboards in locations where they could spread fire to adjacent combustible materials. This means that the panel must be installed in a location where it is not in contact with any materials that could ignite. When considering the application of these codes to subpanels installed in closet spaces, it is important to understand the intent behind these regulations. While a closet space may not be intended for use strictly as a storage space, the National Electrical Code prohibits the installation of switchboards in locations where they could spread fire to any combustible materials, regardless of their intended use. The specific meaning of National Electrical Code Section 408.17 is that switchboards must be installed in locations where they are not exposed to any potential sources of ignition, including combustible materials. This includes closets, even if they are not primarily intended for storage. Given these considerations, it is likely that an inspector might deem a subpanel installation within a closet space as non-compliant. The determining factor is whether the closet space is considered a combustible space. If so, the installation of the subpanel in that location could violate National Electrical Code Section 408.17. If you intend to install a subpanel in a master bedroom closet space or similar area, there are several potential solutions to ensure compliance. Firstly, consider relocating the subpanel entirely to a location that is not in contact with any combustible materials. This is often the simplest and most straightforward solution. Secondly, investigate the possibility of installing a non-combustible barrier between the subpanel and any combustible materials present in the closet space. This barrier would need to effectively prevent the spread of fire from the subpanel to the surrounding materials. Thirdly, explore the option of obtaining a variance from the local authority having jurisdiction that allows for the installation of the subpanel in the closet space. This variance would likely require the implementation of specific safety measures to mitigate the risk of fire. It is important to remember that electrical codes are in place to protect people and property from harm. When in doubt, always consult with a qualified electrical inspector to ensure that your installation is safe and compliant. The interpretation of codes can sometimes be complex, and local jurisdictions may have their own specific requirements. The primary concern with installing electrical equipment in closets and similar spaces is the potential for fire hazards. Closets often contain combustible materials such as clothing, boxes, and other stored items. If a fault occurs in the electrical equipment, it could ignite these materials, leading to a fire. The purpose of National Electrical Code Section 408.17 is to minimize this risk by requiring that electrical equipment be installed in locations where it is not likely to come into contact with combustible materials. There are some specific points to consider. Firstly, determine the intended use of the space. Even if the space is not currently being used as a closet, its design and potential for future use as a closet must be considered. Secondly, identify any combustible materials present in the space. This includes not only items that are currently stored in the space, but also any building materials such as wood framing or drywall. Thirdly, evaluate the potential for the electrical equipment to ignite these materials. This includes considering the risk of sparks, arcing, and overheating. If there is a significant risk of fire, then the installation may not be compliant with National Electrical Code Section 408.17. In some cases, it may be possible to mitigate the risk of fire by taking certain precautions. For example, you could install a fire-rated enclosure around the electrical equipment, or you could use non-combustible materials for the surrounding walls and ceiling. However, it is important to consult with a qualified electrical inspector to ensure that these measures are sufficient to meet the requirements of the National Electrical Code. Remember that the ultimate goal is to ensure the safety of people and property. By carefully considering the potential fire hazards associated with electrical installations in closets and similar spaces, you can help to prevent fires and protect lives. Electrical panels and subpanels are designed to distribute electricity safely throughout a building. They contain circuit breakers that protect individual circuits from overloads and short circuits. However, these panels can also be a source of ignition if they are not installed and maintained properly. Here are some of the potential fire hazards associated with electrical panels. Firstly, loose connections are a common cause of electrical fires. Over time, the connections in an electrical panel can loosen due to vibration, temperature changes, and other factors. These loose connections can create resistance, which generates heat. If the heat becomes excessive, it can ignite nearby materials. Secondly, overloaded circuits can also cause fires. Each circuit in an electrical panel is designed to carry a certain amount of current. If the circuit is overloaded, it can overheat and cause a fire. This is why it is important to never exceed the ampacity rating of a circuit. Thirdly, damaged wiring can also be a fire hazard. If the insulation on electrical wiring is damaged, it can expose the back conductors. This can create a short circuit, which can generate a large amount of heat and cause a fire. Fourthly, moisture can also cause electrical fires. If moisture gets into an electrical panel, it can create a path for electricity to flow where it is not supposed to. This can cause a short circuit, which can generate heat and cause a fire. Fifthly, improper grounding can also be a fire hazard. Grounding provides a path for fault current to flow back to the source, which helps to protect people from electric shock. If the grounding is not done properly, it can create a dangerous situation where people can be shocked or even electrocuted. Sixthly, the age of the panel can also contribute to fire risk. Older panels may have outdated components that are more prone to failure. Regular inspection and maintenance are crucial to identify and address potential hazards. To prevent electrical fires, it is important to have electrical panels inspected regularly by a qualified electrician. The electrician can check for loose connections, overloaded circuits, damaged wiring, moisture, and other potential hazards. The electrician can also perform maintenance tasks such as tightening connections, replacing worn components, and cleaning the panel. It is also important to be aware of the signs of an electrical problem. These signs include flickering lights, burning smells, and warm outlets or switches. If you notice any of these signs, it is important to contact a qualified electrician immediately. Another consideration is the potential for arc flash. Arc flash is a dangerous phenomenon that can occur when there is a short circuit in an electrical panel. The arc flash can generate intense heat and light, which can cause severe burns and other injuries. To protect workers from arc flash hazards, it is important to follow safe work practices such as wearing appropriate personal protective equipment and using insulated tools. Also, consider the specific requirements for working on or near energized electrical equipment. The National Electrical Code and other safety standards provide detailed guidance on how to safely work on electrical equipment. These standards cover topics such as lockout/tagout procedures, personal protective equipment, and safe work distances. It is important to follow these standards to prevent electrical accidents. When installing a subpanel, it is essential to follow all applicable codes and regulations. This includes obtaining the necessary permits and inspections. It is also important to use qualified electricians who are familiar with the National Electrical Code and other safety standards. If you are not comfortable working with electricity, it is best to hire a qualified electrician to do the work for you. Working with electricity can be dangerous, and it is important to take all necessary precautions to prevent accidents. Always turn off the power before working on any electrical equipment. Use insulated tools and wear appropriate personal protective equipment. If you are not sure how to do something safely, ask a qualified electrician for help. Finally, always remember that electrical safety is everyone's responsibility. By following safe work practices and being aware of the potential hazards, you can help to prevent electrical accidents and protect yourself and others from harm. The specific requirements for subpanel installations can vary depending on the local jurisdiction. It is important to check with the local authorities to determine the specific requirements in your area. The local authorities may have additional requirements that are not covered by the National Electrical Code. They may also have different interpretations of the National Electrical Code. It is important to be aware of these differences and to comply with all applicable requirements. When dealing with electrical inspections, it is important to be prepared to answer questions from the inspector. The inspector may ask about the installation methods used, the materials used, and the overall safety of the installation. It is important to be able to provide accurate and complete answers to these questions. If you are not sure how to answer a question, it is best to admit that you do not know and to offer to find out the answer. It is also important to be respectful of the inspector and to cooperate with their requests. The inspector is there to ensure the safety of the installation, and it is important to work with them to achieve that goal. In some cases, the inspector may require you to make changes to the installation in order to bring it into compliance with the code. It is important to be willing to make these changes, even if they are inconvenient. The safety of the installation is the top priority, and it is important to do whatever is necessary to ensure that it is safe. Remember that the electrical code is a complex and constantly evolving set of rules. It is important to stay up to date on the latest changes to the code in order to ensure that your installations are safe and compliant. You can stay up to date on the latest changes to the code by attending training courses, reading industry publications, and consulting with qualified electrical professionals. In summary, subpanel installations in closets require careful consideration of National Electrical Code sections 408.50 and 408.17, focusing on preventing fire hazards from combustible materials. Compliance can be achieved through relocation, non-combustible barriers, or variances with specific safety measures. Always consult local authorities and qualified electricians for accurate interpretation and safe implementation of electrical codes.